Hello friends, welcome to our channel Knowledge Amplifier. So today in this particular video, I am going to discuss some more detailed concepts related to networking in AWS cloud computing. Okay, so already in our previous video, we have discussed about fundamental concept of networking in cloud. That is what is VPC, what is basically subnet, what is internet gateway, what is route tables, and how to connect an EC2 instance which is launched in a particular subnet within a VPC and internet. All these things I have explained in detail in our previous video. If you want to know the detailed explanation, then please go through the link given in the description box. Okay. So just to recall our concepts. So we are having a VPC which is a private space in our AWS, and that VPC can span across a region. Okay. So under that particular region, there can be multiple availability zone. Okay. Now for a particular VPC, we assign a range of IP addresses. Like for this case, 10.10.0.0/16. That means the first two octets we cannot use and the next two octets can change, right? So minimum IP can be 10.10.0.1 till it can go to 10.10.255.254 because 10.10.255.255 is used for broadcasting, right? I hope you can recall these fundamental concepts. Okay. Now this bigger IP range we split into multiple subnets. So we have launched subnet A in availability zone 1 and we have launched another subnet B which is launched in availability zone 2. Okay. And these subnets can communicate in between each other using route table, which is basically tagged to one particular VPC, right? And now because this is kind of a private cloud, so if we need to communicate any EC2 which is launched in subnet A and internet, then we need internet gateway. And for that, in the main route table which is tagged to one VPC, we have to give this particular routing information. That is, if the connection is coming from internet, then we should forward this to IGW, which will take care of connection in between internet and this EC2, right? Now, this is what we covered in our earlier discussion. Basically, our intention was in our on-premise system, on-premise data centers, we have hosted one public-facing web server, and that one, our CTO or Chief Technology Officer wanted to migrate to EC2 as a host. Okay, that time we did the POC to check whether EC2 can connect with internet or not. So for that, we discussed all these concepts, right? Now, what is the problem in this particular architecture? Let's try to understand, okay? Suppose you have two subnets, subnet A and subnet B, okay? And in the main route table, you have specified 0.0.0.0/0. If this particular from internet some request is coming, then IGW or internet gateway will basically handle that one, okay? Now this way, if you are doing, then both EC2, this particular EC2 which is basically launched in subnet A as well as this particular EC2 which is launched in subnet B, both are now connected to internet, right? And that we might not want. We might be interested only accessing internet from this particular EC2 which is launched in subnet A but not from subnet B, okay? Why I am saying that both EC2 has internet access in this particular mechanism? The reason is, suppose you are in this particular EC2 and you are trying to connect with internet, it will be first going to main route table and it will be getting this particular entry 0.0.0.0/0 and it will be connecting to internet gateway and then it will be connecting to internet, right? So this way both EC2 servers are now accessible to internet, okay? But suppose this particular EC2 instance, for this particular EC2 instance only, we need to connect with internet because we have hosted one web server in this EC2. But suppose this particular EC2 instance is used for database server. We have created our database in this particular EC2. Okay. Now making this particular EC2 instance accessible to internet where basically database is hosted make this system vulnerable. Hackers can try to hack this particular system and they can get important information from this particular EC2, right? So we need certain mechanism so that this particular EC2 will never get access via internet, okay? Only one EC2 we want to give access, but always this EC2 and this EC2 can communicate, okay? Because if you see main route table 10.10.0.0/16, which is basically local connection, it is there by default, right? So this EC2 instance and this EC2 instance can always communicate in between each other, not a problem, because they are in the private subnet, right? But making all the EC2 instance public to internet is not a good idea, right? So for that, let us go to some better design, okay? And the design says we will not be using the main route table which is tagged to our whole VPC, okay? Rather, what we will do, we will create small route tables for individual subnets, okay? And our design will look like this. In this particular case, we will be having our VPC, that is 10.10.0.0/16, okay? That is basically last two octets we can keep open for hosting purpose, okay? We are having our main route table in which we will be having local connection routing so that this EC2 and this EC2 can always communicate. But to make this particular EC2 accessible through internet, we will not configure 0.0.0.0/0 which will connect to IGW in the main route table. Rather, what we will do, we will create another route table, and that route table we will tag to this particular subnet A. That way, what will happen, under this particular subnet, suppose we are launching one particular EC2 instance to host some public facing website, then that can easily connect to internet gateway via this particular routing table of the subnet, okay? But this particular EC2 where we have hosted our database, that cannot connect, because here in this particular routing table of subnet B, we are assigning only 10.10.0.0/16, right? So this has no chance to connect with internet gateway and internet, right? Because we are not specifying that entity in the routing table. So the only trick is, instead of using main route table to configure for internet gateway, what we will do, we will create routing table for individual subnet for internet connection, okay? Although for internet connection we are configuring individual routing table, but actually this particular EC2 can easily communicate with this particular EC2 in this setup as well. Because when this particular EC2 will try to connect with this EC2 in the routing table, obviously local connection will be allowed, right? And that way this particular EC2 can easily communicate with this particular EC2, okay? Right? So that's what we are going to see in our this particular discussion, okay? So maybe what we can do for this particular subnet, we can give one small IP range, that is 10.10.0.0/24, that is in this particular subnet 10.0.0.1 is the minimum IP address value, and maximum it can go to 10.10.0.255, right? Like that it can go, okay? And for this particular subnet B, what we are doing, we are again assigning a small part of IP range what is available in our this particular VPC, that is 10.10.1.0/24, that is 10.10.1.1 till 10.10.1.255. like that is basically IP range what we are providing to this particular subnet, okay? Only thing we will do, we will be basically creating two different route tables, okay? So let us try to do this particular experiment and let's see how it goes. So what we will do, we will create a VPC with this particular name, Virtual Private Cloud, okay? I'll go to AWS Management Console and I'll go to VPC. I'll go to your VPCs and I'll go to create VPC. I'll paste this particular one, IPv4 CIDR range. I can specify 10.0.0.16, okay? Suppose this is the one. So in that case, our minimum will be 10.0.0.1 and maximum will be 10.0.255.254. Like that is our IP range for this particular configuration, okay? We are not specifying any IPv6, that's fine. And keeping this particular one, we will basically create our VPC, okay? Then what is the next step? Basically here, as you can see, host address range is this particular one, cool. And step 2 will be creating two subnet. One which will have internet access, one which will not have internet access, okay? So first we will create a subnet. For that subnet, we'll be giving the name Public-Subnet-A, okay? I'll go to subnets and here I'll go to create subnet. First we have to choose VPC. So we created virtual private cloud this VPC, so I'm choosing that and then I'm specifying that particular name, and here the range I'll be specifying 10.0.0.24 so that only last octet can vary, okay? So here availability zone, let us choose maybe in 2A we want to launch, and I'll be specifying this particular IP range, and then here we can create the sub, okay? So here one subnet we have already created, right? And then what we will do, as you can see, if we specify this particular address as CIDR, then our range will be 10.0.0.1 till 10.0.0.254. And then what we'll do, we'll create another subnet, which basically we try to keep private because we are going to host databases there. So what we'll do, we'll go to VPC, we'll choose this particular one, we'll be giving private subnet. And here this time I'll be choosing this particular IP range 10.0.1.0/24. That is, minimum will be 10.0.1.1 and maximum will be 10.0.1.250. Okay. So here availability zone letters may be launched in other AZ. I am choosing that. And here I am specifying this particular IPv4 CIDR. Okay. And then here what I will do, I will create the subnet for our private one also. So public and private both under same VPC we have created. But now both are same because we have not configured internet gateway. So both is not as of now accessible. So in step 3, let us see what we have to do. Check the default route table, that is basically main route table which is basically attached to this VPC whatever we created. You will see that both the subnets whatever we created have not been explicitly associated with any route table and therefore associated with the main route table. Okay. So what happens basically, if you see this particular diagram, when you create different subnets, then when you launch a VPC, then by default one particular main route table is created which is attached to this particular VPC. And under that VPC, if you are creating multiple subnets, then if you are not explicitly attaching those subnets to some routing tables, by default all the subnets will be assigned to this particular main route table. Okay. So if you go to VPC and if you go to route table, and this is the basically route table for our VPC what we created just now. If you see here 10.0.0.0/16, this is basically our CIDR. And if you go to subnet associated, here you will able to see that these both subnets, Private-Subnet-B and Public-Subnet-A, for Private-Subnet whatever range we specified as well as for Public-Subnet whatever range we specified, both are attached to this particular main routing table which is attached to our VPC. Okay. And here it is clearly showing the following subnets have not been explicitly associated with any route tables and are therefore associated with the main route table. If we associate these subnets individually with some specific route tables, then it will be automatically removed from this main routing tables. Okay. That's what we want, right? So we'll go to step 4. What we will do, we will create an internet gateway and we will connect to that VPC as well. Okay. Because if you see our diagram, this particular EC2 instance where we want to launch our web server, that need internet connection, right? So for that internet gateway is required. So what I will do, I will create an internet gateway for our this particular VPC. Okay. So I will go and I can give the name my IGW VPC. Okay. And that's it. And I can create the internet gateway. Cool. And if you go to internet gateway, here it is showing detached. So what I will do, I will attach with our VPC. Okay. So here attach to VPC. So here I am choosing our VPC and we are attaching. That's fine. Up to this it is done. Now what we will do, we will create 2 route tables and we will attach our subnets with those route tables. Okay. And in one route table, we will be attaching public internet gateway and another one route table will be keeping only private stuff. Okay. So for one route table, I can give the name maybe public route. And what we will do, we will go to route tables and then here we can go to create route table. I can paste this one and VPC I can choose virtual private cloud this one and we can create the route. Okay. So for this particular routing table, what we'll do, we'll edit the routes and I will add internet connection as well. That is 0.0.0.0/0. And that one I want to connect with internet gateway. That is basically my IGW VPC, whatever we created. Okay. And I will save the changes. Okay. Not only that, we have to associate this subnet also with it. Okay. So I will go to subnet association and then here I will add that public subnet. Okay. So public subnet I will be adding and then I will save the association. Okay. So our public subnet is now associated with this particular route table, right? That is this particular subnet. For this one, we have configured this route table. Now for private subnet B, we need to configure another route table, right? We will do that. So we'll go to route table and then here we will go to create route table. I'll be taking the name as private route. Okay. and then here VPC, I'll be choosing our VPC, and then we will create the route table. Now this route table, see, only has local connectivity, because this particular EC2, if this particular EC2 where web service is launched, if they want to communicate with database server, they need local connection, right? And you cannot delete this one, so it will be there. I don't want to add any additional rule. All I will do, I will add our subnet. Which subnet? Private subnet with it. Okay. So here I will save the association, right? And it is done. Now what we did basically, for both subnets we created individual route tables. Now initially both subnets were attached to this particular main routing table because we have not explicitly configured this subnet and we have not explicitly associated them with other routing tables. But because we did now, if you go back to your main routing table, you will not see those subnets. Okay. So if you go to main routing table, that is basically this particular one, here you will not see any subnet associated, because for both of those subnets we associated some other routing tables, right? Now what we can do, we can basically launch EC2 instance under this particular subnet that can easily connect with internet. Okay, but this particular EC2 instance, because we have not configured IGW, this cannot communicate. Okay, but still you can see this particular EC2 and this particular EC2 can communicate between each other. Okay, so let me show you that, and that's the beauty of networking in cloud. Okay, so what I will do, I will go to EC2, and here first what I will do, I will go to key pair, and then here I will create a key pair. Okay, so I will be downloading PEM file, demo key YT18. Okay, so here PEM file is downloaded, and now I can go to EC2 instance, and then here I can launch instance. Okay, so let us choose this particular one, and T2 micro, that's fine. Okay, and VPC I can choose our virtual private cloud, whatever we created, and this one we want to launch in public subnet so that we can communicate with the internet. Okay, and for that we need internet connection, we need a public IP, so we can enable this particular one. We can go to add storage, we can go to next, and here you can see SSH connection custom 000/0 is there. Okay, if you want you can choose my IP also if you want to specifically connect with your IP, but as of now this is fine. And here we can launch this. Okay, so here I can take this particular key, I agree with this, and I can launch the instance. Okay, now what I will do with this PEM file, I will generate ppk file. From that I will go to put tgen, and then here I will load this one. I will choose all files, and this is the PEM file. I'll open that one. Okay, save private key, yes. I can give demo YT18 show. Okay, maybe I can choose in talent folder. Okay, let's save this particular one. I can close this one, right? Perfect. Now what I will do, I will go back to my EC2. Now it is running. Perfect. Okay, so what I can do, I can take the public IPv4 address, and then here I can go to putty. Okay, I can paste this particular one, and I can go to SSH, browse. I'll browse from my talent folder. Okay, this is the one. I will take this one, I will click on open. Okay, yes, and then I can log in as EC2 user because that is the default user ID. And here it's done. Okay, now suppose I can do ping google.com. Okay, so here you can see it is able to connect with internet, right? So what we are doing basically, we have launched one EC2 under this particular subnet where IGW is configured. This EC2 can connect with internet because this IGW is enabled. That's fine. Okay, I will just press Ctrl C. That's fine because we have seen that internet communication working. Now we will launch another EC2 instance in subnet B. Okay, so here I will go to instance, and then here I will launch instance. I will take Linux image. Okay, and let this is be. I'll go to create instance, and now here I will choose our VPC, and now I will choose private subnet. Okay, and for private subnet we don't need any public key. I'm not taking that. I can go to next, add storage, add tags, and then configure security group. Security group basically acting like firewall, as you know. Now here we need to do something. Okay, let's see that. Okay, we have launched one EC2 instance in public subnet, and we have enabled auto assign public IP. It was working. Now we are trying to launch one EC2 instance in private subnet. Now see here, we have to keep SSH so that at least from this particular EC2, which is basically there in public subnet, from there we can enter in this EC2, right? Or else if you don't allow SSH, then what will happen? This in this EC2 you even cannot enter, because this is not connected with internet. But we have to enter in this EC2, right? So what we can do, using internet connection, we can enter in this EC2, and from this EC2 we can do SSH to this EC2. That way we can connect at least in this private EC2, right? So that's why we need SSH and ICMP also required. What is ICMP? ICMP is nothing but Internet Control Message Protocol. Okay, to check whether network is properly working or not. So for network diagnosis it works. Okay, so what maybe we can do, because we can enable ICMP, then what will happen if we enter in this particular EC2, we can ping google.com and we can check whether we can connect with internet or not from this EC2. Okay, so for that only I will enable ICMP also. So what I will do, I will add rule, and here I will keep all ICMP, and then here what we can do, if you observe closely, only our requirement is from this particular EC2 to this EC2 we need SSH connection, not from everywhere, right? So what we can do for this particular private EC2 configuration, in this particular IP, we can mention the IP of our first EC2, which is kind of public. Okay, that way it will be more secured, not from elsewhere it can connect. Okay, anyway, we have not configured any internet connectivity, so it will not connect, but still, just for safe side, what I will do, I will take the public IP and that I will paste here, so that what will happen, only from this particular EC2 we can enter in this EC2. Okay, so that is done. We can go to review and launch. Resource need to be CIDR block or this one. I think I have given directly public address. We have to give the IP range for our this first subnet. Sorry. So what we will do, we will be basically giving the IP address of our first subnet, so that from first public subnet it can communicate with the private subnet, and then we can go to review and launch. Okay, launch, and then same key I am choosing, and I will launch this particular instance. Okay, so now if I go there, here you will see that for this one there is no public IPv4 DNS, because this is launched in private way, right? If I go there, here see the instance is in pending state yet. Let's see it is running, but if we enter inside that, there is no public IPv4 address, because that is private EC2. We have not made that public, right? Then how can we communicate? It is very simple, right? Because we have this local connection, so from this EC2 we can SSH into this EC2. Okay, so we will do that, right? So let's see whether ping is working or not. So for that I will go back to this particular private EC2, which don't have any public IPv4 address, and I'll be taking the private IP address, and let's try to ping that particular private EC2. Okay, so that now we are checking from this public EC2 we can ping the private EC2 or not, and see, we are perfectly able to do, right? Now what we can do, from this SSH we can try to enter in our private one. So for that, what we need to do, we will basically first transfer the PEM file, because that PEM file, now we cannot use the PPK file, because from this particular EC2, which is a Linux machine, we are trying to enter in another Linux machine. So that time what we need basically the PEM file, right? So what I will do, I will go back to my public EC2. I will be taking that particular one. I'll put the host name, and I will give this name as EC2 user, and for password, what I will do, I will go to authentication, and I will choose this particular PPK file so that we can use SSH in our first EC2. Okay. So here we are able to enter in our first EC2, and then here what I will do, I will go to talent folder. I'll be copying this particular one. I'll go to WinSCP. I'll paste this particular one, and basically what I will do, I will take the PEM file. Oh, sorry, PEM file is I think directly available in downloads, right? So I have to take this particular one. We go user and then downloads. Okay, and then here what I will do, I will take the PEM file, demo key 18. So this is the PEM file. I'll be copying that particular one. Okay, that's fine. Now once that is done, what we will do, we will try to enter in the private subnet EC2 from the public subnet EC2. Okay, so if you see this one, we have already pinged private EC2 from the public EC2 as well as from the public EC2 we have pinged google.com. Both are working, right? Now what we did, we basically sent the PEM file via WinSCP to public EC2. Now we will use this particular key to enter in our private EC2. Okay, so to connect with private EC2, what we will do, we will go back to our AWS management console, and then here basically this is on private EC2. If I go here and if I click on connect, here it is saying some comments, right? So first we have to do this particular query. So if we do ls, here we are getting this particular PEM file, right? So first I will be giving 400, and then what we will do, we will enter in this particular EC2 using this PEM file. Okay. So if you see, this 10.0.1.245 is nothing but private IP for this particular EC2. 10.0.1.245 is the private IP for this private EC2. Okay. So now we will try to do enter, yes, and see, we have entered in that private EC2. Okay. So this particular EC2 don't have access to internet, but because the EC2 which is launched in our public subnet, that with respect to that, this is local, that's why we are able to enter here, because in the routing table it is there, local communication is enabled, right? So now if I from this particular private subnet EC2, if I try to ping google.com, it will not work. Okay, because here IGW is not connected, right? So maybe if I do Control C, here you will see 7 packet transmitted but no packet received, 100% packet lost, because from this particular EC2 which is launched in private subnet, their IGW is not configured in routing table, that's why it is completely private. Okay, so I hope you understood this particular one. So in this particular video, not only we have used main routing table, but here we have attached our individual subnets to individual routing table, and we have seen how to enter in a private subnet EC2 from a public subnet EC2. Okay, and this way what you can do in this private subnet EC2, that is basically in this EC2 where you are currently, which is hosted in private subnet, there you can keep your database server, because database contains confidential information, right? So we will be making that completely private, no internet connection directly available. But the EC2 which is basically hosting the web service, their internet connection is available, and that EC2 might need to communicate with our database server. That's why local communication we are allowing, but not directly this particular EC2 is exposed in internet. Okay, that's the beauty. And now I can exit from this private EC2. Now I am back to public EC2. Now I can do ping google.com. Again it will start working. Okay, I hope you got the concept. Now you can close both the EC2 instance. So this is all for this video. I will be discussing some more concepts related to network in our upcoming sessions. If you find this particular video helpful, then please like, share and comment, subscribe our channel if you have not subscribed till now, and don't forget to press the bell icon to get the notification of our latest video.